What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Channel. I'm AJ Gills, guys. I am finally doing this video. If you can tell by the top of this, this is all kind of me ranting, probably even more. I've done a few rants on EA and how they are just shitting the bed left, right, and center. Yeah, I think I said this when they announced that they weren't going to do any single-player DLC for Mass Effect Andromeda. Well, I believe I said this, is that at every opportunity that they have to go, you know what, we screwed up somewhere and try and fix it, they do the opposite. They try and shove it under the bed and run away. I mean, that's what they're doing with Mass Effect. We'll talk about that later. Basically, I'm going to do this as linear as I can, because this all started about October 17th, so what, geez, about 2 weeks ago. Sorry, I know I'm super late on this video. Either way, I'm going to rant about this, because this has been on my mind, and I've been meaning to do this video. Either way, so this all starts back, this October 17th article, Michael McWhirter of Polygon, EA shutting down Visceral Games and overhauling the Star Wars game. Visceral was working on a single-player Star Wars game, much in the vein of... I think it says it in here, similar to, like, Uncharted. Either way, let's get into this article. The article reads, Electronic Arts is shutting down its Visceral Games studio and making major changes to the team's in-development Star Wars project, EA Executive Vice President Patrick Soderlund announced today. Visceral has been working on an action-adventure game set in the Star Wars universe in some form since 2013, when EA and Disney announced a multi-year game deal. It's been described as a, and I quote, story-based linear adventure, end quote, in the style of Naughty Dog's Uncharted series, but based on comments from Soderlund, EA is making a, and I quote, significant change to that title, end quote. I believe it also talks about this later. Yep, Amy Hennig worked on, was running the production for this game. If memory serves, Amy Hennig also worked, and if not, this is what happens when I always have a thought. I don't pay enough attention to developers. I know she worked on the Uncharted franchise. I cannot remember on what capacity. I know she was a high up in the Uncharted franchise. I just cannot remember. Yeah, I can't remember the exact when or what her position was in that project. So either way, so basically, as we can see here, Visceral was working on the new Star Wars game. Now that project is not being shut down, but it's being significantly changed. Let's see why. And I quote, throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace, Soderlund said. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we need to pivot the design. We will maintain the stunning visuals, authenticity in the Star Wars universe, and focus on bringing a Star Wars story to life. Importantly, we are shifting the game to be a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and reimagining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. Quote, as part of that pivot, EA is delaying the game. It was originally slated to launch in late EA's 2019 fiscal year, which runs from April 2018 to March 2019, but it has been pushed back indefinitely. Well, yeah, that's usually what happens when you completely change the concept of the game. Personally, I would have liked to play I don't know about anyone else. I would have liked to play a Star Wars game sort of like the Uncharted franchise, where it's kind of a shooter, but it's not, more a story-based shooter. There we go. That's how I'll say it. But I mean, this pivot, it's obvious it's going to become an RPG. I mean, it's what it's going to become. So they can sell DLC. It's so they can sell side content. It's this. Now, look, I'd be a hypocrite if I say I hate DLC and I hate that we're going to sell DLC. I've been arguing with people because I bought the $100 Assassin's Creed to get the season pass and to get some bonus stuff. Look, I support Assassin's Creed. I've always said it. I get the special editions again, so I get the DLCs and I get the whatever, because that's what I like. And I believe buy what you want to buy, but know what that money says to people. And whatever, but I don't have a problem necessarily with DLCs. I prefer they be big expansions like what Fallout did or what The Witcher did when they made those massive expansions. But all in all, I don't have a personal issue with DLC. But I do have a problem with what EA does, because EA is about the one company that I'm hesitant on. And that's because, I mean, it's no secret how much people don't like EA. EA has been shitting its pants for years now. It's one of, geez, I think it was the most unpopular video game, or is it just unpopular company, period. People have big problems with the way EA does business. Personally, I mean, I still really like their sports games, but still. Let's see here. The change in Visceral Star Wars project will have an even bigger impact on people working at the studio. EA is closing Visceral Games, and other EA studios will take over development of the Star Wars title. And I quote, "A development team from across EA Worldwide Studios will take over development of this game, led by a team from EA Vancouver that has already been working on the project." Sutherland said, "Our Visceral studio will be ramping down and closing, and we're in the midst of shifting as many of the team as possible to other projects and teams at EA," end quote. My question is, why shut down Visceral? I mean, it's not a name I've heard in a while, but why shut down Visceral? Since announcing that Visceral was one of the internal studios working on the Star Wars game, Electronic Arts has offered little in the way of detail about the project. EA and Visceral announced that former Naughty Dog creative director Amy Hennig, there we go, was working on the title. There we go. Got her title. Co-writing the Star Wars adventure with Todd Stashwick, EA showed only a brief glimpse of the game at E3 2016. God, I'm trying to remember that. I don't remember seeing much of that game. EA's next Star Wars title hits in November. DICE's Star Wars Battlefront 2 is in development for PlayStation 4, Windows PC, Xbox, blah, blah, blah. Titanfall developer Respawn is also working on a Star Wars game for EA. I believe we've heard about that one. That one was, I believe, confirmed in RPG, but I could be wrong on that. I'll always note I could be wrong. Visceral Games was founded in EA Redwood Shores in 1998. The studio changed its name in 2009. So the Dead Space franchise and Battlefield Hardline. Look, I still say Battlefield Hardline was way better than people gave it credit for. Its multiplayer I can't talk about, but I loved its story. And right there, asked about Amy Hennig's future at EA, representative for the company told Polygon, we're in discussions with Amy about her next move. All right, so there we go. So we have EA's shutting down Visceral and overhauling the new Star Wars. Now that led into another article by Samit Sarkar. EA's Star Wars pivot is a vote of no confidence in single-player games. Well, let's read. There's a few things. This is a fairly long article, as you can kind of see, and there's some stuff in the bottom that I kind of want to talk about as a, you know, like a YouTube content creator and that sort of thing. Let's see here. Article reads, yesterday's sobering Star Wars news is just the latest nail in the coffin for a beloved but increasingly unsustainable style of video games. Big-budget cinematic action games designed as linear single-player experiences. Electronic Arts announced yesterday that it is refocusing the Star Wars project that had been in development at Visceral Games, an unannounced action-adventure title with a linear story campaign. EA Vancouver is talking over with a new direction assisted by other EA studios, while EA is shuttering Visceral Games entirely and looking to shift the studio's developers elsewhere inside the company. Well, at least a shitload of people aren't just out and losing jobs. At least they're getting put other places, hopefully. Let's see here. The news itself is shocking. Visceral has been working on the game for at least 3.5 years and had shown brief glimpses of it, but it's not surprising people who follow the games business Jeez, words. In announcing the decision, EA Executive Vice President Patrick Sutherland described the industry as, and I quote, evolving faster and more dramatically than ever before, end quote, and pointed to market trends as part of EA's reasoning. If you read between the lines, it's not hard to figure out why this happened. Okay. It's the economy, stupid. Electronic Arts is second only to Activision among third-party game publishers in terms of market capitalization. The company holds the exclusive rights to video game licenses for Star Wars, one of the most enduring, popular, and valuable brands in all of entertainment. Multiple Star Wars titles are in development at EA. The publisher will release Star Wars Battlefront 2 in a month. while independent studio Respawn Entertainment is working on an unannounced game, but it sounds like the company felt it couldn't make the economics work for Visceral's project. Here's the most telling section of Sunderland's announcement. And I quote, "In its current form, it's shaping up to be a story-based linear adventure. Throughout the development, we have blah, 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 blah." Okay, we read that in the last article. Plenty of... all these will be linked in the below. All these articles will be linked down below if you would like to go and read those on your own. Plenty of games still get released in stores as $60 box products, but these days the story rarely ends there. Most publishers plan to supplement retail games with add-on content, whether through expansions in a season pass or virtual trinkets via microtransactions. The latter is increasingly prevalent. The marketplace has been moving towards the free-to-play model for years, and one of the business's fundamental shifts is that we're not at a place where seemingly every other high-profile new release this fall is raising players hackless. What the fuck is that word? With an exploitative microtransaction. God damn it! Exploitative microtransaction scheme. Okay. What? This is something I'm going to disagree with Polly on. I don't understand the exploitative microtransaction scheme. Look, if you have a problem with the principle of microtransaction, fine. But so many people were flipping out about the microtransactions in... Oh, come on, brain. Middle-earth Shadow of War. Honestly, I totally disagree that that's something to light your hair on fire about. Everybody's like, oh, well, you can get your orcs and get stronger orcs and invade other people's. I've had my fortresses raided by other people. My orcs are still there. As far as I see, they don't die permanently. I could be wrong on that. If I'm wrong, correct me. But as far as I've seen, they don't die permanently. I know Assassin's Creed Origins has microtransactions in some way, shape, or form. We know Destiny has it in some way, shape, or form. Which you buy silver or whatever with real world money, and then in one of the marketplaces in the game, then you can buy certain gear. I mean, it's just something that's in games all around. Is it something that I necessarily like? No. Is it something I understand 100%? And I think they put it best right there, is it's supplementing income. That for people, it's just a way to keep making money off a game in between games. Again, like I said, do I like it? No. Do I understand it? 100%. Let's see here. That includes EA's own Battlefront 2, which had a multiplayer beta earlier this month that gave people a look at the game's loot crates, the setup in which players can speed up progression by purchasing loot boxes with a real money currency. Drew ire from beta testers. The feedback spurred EA to reassure prospective buyers that it will work to balance Battlefront 2 in a way that will, and I quote, ensure the game is fun for everyone, end quote. Again, I find this with Call of Duty. They do a similar thing. Again, we might not like it. It speeds up progression, but in all honesty, who cares? That's my thing. It's just with this whole loot box controversy, with this whole microtransaction thing. Do I like it? Like I said, no. But at the same time, I don't really care enough to fight. That's my stance. That's the short answer of my stance. Like I said, this video is a rant. I don't have a necessary direction that I'm going. Let's see here. The original Star Wars Battlefront was a multiplayer-only game. Not technically true. The one by EA, yes. I mean, if you include the good ones on the PlayStation 2. Hell, I think I played a Star Wars Battlefront on GameCube. Like the original Star Wars Battlefront all those years ago, and then Battlefront 2 came out on PlayStation 2, and I loved the shit out of that game. Either way, it wasn't multiplayer only. It had a fucking story. You played the Fighting 5.0 first. It was awesome. Where was I? It received a lukewarm response primarily for that reason, with critics and fans clamoring for a story campaign and more multiplayer content. In the follow-up, EA is aiming to deliver on both fronts with Battlefront 2, which contains a full solo campaign with slick cutscenes, but as ever the multiplayer component and its attendant microtransactions is EA's attempt to make sure that players, well, and I quote, players will want to come back and enjoy the game for a long time to come, end quote. Okay, yeah. That's the point of this game. I mean, as far as I've seen, Battlefront's story is, what, I think I read 7 to 8 hours? Yeah. I'm not surprised. You can complain all you want about the infestation of microtransactions in full-price games, but it's worth understanding why they're becoming more pervasive. The economics of this strain of AAA game development dictate publishers' decisions in the arena. Budgets have skyrocketed in the high-definition era, right along with players' expectations. Meanwhile, the retail price of a, and I quote, full game has stayed at $59 since the Xbox 360's launch kicked off previous console generation in 2005, 12 years ago. That makes it more risky and challenging for publishers to justify pouring tens of millions of dollars, not to mention the work of hundreds of developers over multiple years into a project that may not strike a chord with customers. All right, look. Here's my thing, and this is something that Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller always talked about, be it on Beyond, be it on PS I Love You XOXO. They make great points on this, and that is vote with your wallet. If you don't like it, don't buy the game. That has always been my stance on this. Vote with your wallet. Don't buy the game. If you don't like it, don't freaking buy it. And we're done. I mean, that's all I can say, is just don't buy it. If you don't like microtransactions, you know they're going to be in the game, don't buy the game. And we're done. Tell companies you don't want it with the one thing that they care about. Don't just sit and bitch. Sit and actually don't buy the game. Where was I? EA's decision to pivot Visceral Star Wars project remains remarkable. Oh, one other thing on this. They mentioned how the games have been $60 since 2005. All right. Again, something Colin Moriarty once put out on PS I Love You XOXO, or at least I believe it was on there, that basically, again, it kind of comes down to, if we all say no and just stop, or all it would, oh God, what was his exact point? It was something along the lines of, if one developer just said, hey, here's a big AAA project, $30, they would make a shitload of money. And then other people would lower prices. It's just why video games cost $60 isn't necessarily that's what you need to break even. That's basically just what, you know, what we've said video games cost. It was something like that. Go back and watch his stuff. I actually really liked his commentary back when he was commenting on games. Before he got ousted from Kind of Funny. Again, I've done videos on that before. I'm not going to relitigate that issue. Either way, moving on, EA's decision to pivot Visceral Star Wars project remains remarkable because of the existing investment. However, after 3 or 4 years in development at Visceral, EA Vancouver, and elsewhere inside the company, the game represents a huge sunk cost for EA. Crunching the numbers on that chance of the title's eventual success, it wasn't scheduled for release until sometime in EA's 2019 fiscal year, which ends in March 2019, which must have indicated to EA executives that it wasn't worth it to keep throwing money into a game focused around a linear single-player campaign, i.e. a game that wouldn't be conducive to long-term monetization. Well, okay, fair enough, but there are tons of studios that do single-player games that don't focus on long-term monetization. Again, The Witcher, that game made a shitload of money. And I mean, what? How much does CD Projekt Red, how many games do they have they made? As far as I've seen, 3. Unless CD Projekt Red's released other stuff that I don't know about that isn't a Witcher game. I mean, and all the Witcher games kick ass. I'm sorry, they're just great. And how did that company not make a shit ton of money on those games? And I think they did something great with the DLC of Witcher 3. Why can't I remember the subtitle? The Wild Hunt, where they released all of that DLC for free right off the bat, and then they had all the expansions, which I think the expansions altogether were $60 really, and they were 2 massive expansions. So I think they did it right. And honestly, I think it has Star Wars in the name. Amy Hennig, it's kind of like Uncharted's, as far as I can tell. It's like these linear shooter games like Uncharted. I don't understand why you'd cut out and not do it. I think that game would do well. And to me, it seems like you'd waste more money completely retooling the project and closing a studio than it would be to finish out that project. So I vastly disagree with this person's take on the situation. And also I don't know. I personally, I don't get why we want to shift. Well, okay. He makes a point later on for linear. Screw it. I'll get into this point. Let's keep reading this. EA isn't immune to this trend because its affect everybody. A number of major AAA single-player games from the past couple of years have failed to meet sales expectations, including Bethesda Softworks' Dishonored 2 and Prey, Square Enix's Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and Ubisoft's Watch Dogs 2. Okay. Dishonored 2, I'll give you. I'm not 100% sure why that one didn't meet sales, because, well, even then, Dishonored had a very strong and loyal following, but as far as I remember, the following was not as broad as I think people want to believe it was. And Prey was really good. It was Arcane Studios, but something that we still also have to remember is Prey was still kind of coming out like a new IP. It was still a very good game. It was, like I said, it was very much reminiscent of Dishonored, but still it was kind of a new game, and you know, like I said, we kind of have to remember that. If somebody wants to argue with me why Prey didn't do as well as it should have, I'm not surprised to see Prey not do as well as it should, as it was expected to. But I don't think either of those did poorly. Square Enix's Deus Ex Mankind Divided, again, I don't know the sales number of this game, but I can also understand why Mankind Divided didn't do great. That's because I don't remember the first game doing that. I don't remember the first game doing that extremely well. Again, that's another case of come on, brain. It had a following, but it didn't have the mass following. And then there's Ubisoft's Watch Dogs 2, and look at what Watch Dogs 1. I don't think the sequel was... People were coming into that one very hesitant. Kind of like me, which I actually say I thought Watch Dogs 2 really did well. I thought overall the game was very good. So, I disagree with... I don't think that these things were poor because they were... Also, Watch Dogs 2 was so linear... That's a stretch. It's an open world sort of action-adventure title. Deus Ex was an RPG with multiple ways to do this. So was Dishonored and Prey. These aren't... I wouldn't call any of these like linear solo games. I mean, they are single-player AAA games, but still, I think comparing them to what like Uncharted is different because they're different title. You know what I mean? They're different kinds of games. What's even more worrisome is that all of those games are open rather than linear in their design, even the ones that aren't. Okay, there we go. Sorry. That's what I get for not reading the next sentence. But I don't get why that's worrisome. They're just different kinds of games, and they appeal to different kinds of players. I would say, if anything, I think these more... come on, brain. These more linear type action games have a bit more of a broader appeal to people. I mean, with a busy schedule, they're shorter, they're more cinematic, they're more this, and this. I think they reach a different crowd, but still. Let's see. Visceral Star Wars game was being helmed by Amy Hennig, who directed multiple Uncharted games at Naughty Dog prior to joining EA in April 2014. It sounded like the Visceral title was intended to be Star Wars a la Uncharted, but solo-focused cinematic action titles like Uncharted 4, Thief's End, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Rise of the Tomb Raider. What? Seem to be a dying breed, and even Uncharted 4 includes an online multiplayer component that is supported by microtransactions. What the fuck is... Really? You wouldn't put Horizon Zero Dawn up there with the games up top, and Rise of the Tomb Raider, I guess, is... I'd compare Rise of the Tomb Raider more to Uncharted, but it's nowhere near as linear. And Horizon Zero Dawn is an open world RPG. Huh? The platform holders, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, are some of the only companies still willing to be able to invest in exorbitant sums required to make these kinds of games, along with the outliers like Take-Two Interactive and its Rockstar subsidiary. Note, however, that Rockstar's terse announcement of Red Dead Redemption 2 mentioned and I quote, brand new online multiplayer experience, end quote, and that Grand Theft Auto 5's online component continues to be a lucrative undertaking for the publisher. Japanese companies are still putting out titles like Dark Souls and Resident Evil 7, but in most cases, those companies aren't operating at the same scale as, say, EA. Okay, EA, yeah, is a massive publisher. I wouldn't compare EA to Rockstar in the sense that they're different sorts of companies. Rockstar is a development. As far as I remember, Rockstar does its own publishing too. It's a developer and publisher. EA is a publisher that has development arms, if that makes sense. But EA is mostly a publisher. Well, I guess it's not technically. It's hard to explain. It's all that. Assuming it's late. Probably why I shouldn't have been doing this late, but whatever. I'd still wouldn't necessarily say 1-to-1 Rockstar and EA are necessarily the same kind of company. I think EA tries to be massive, while Rockstar, I think, has its niche and is at the right size that it should be. And also, again, Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't know, I'm going to continue to beat a dead horse. And then it says that the Japanese companies are smaller. Yeah. Yeah. And their games are usually really freaking good. Like, Resident Evil 7 was great. I don't like Dark Souls, but I don't like the franchise. People loved it. Open world multiplayer games in the AAA space requires similar levels of investment, but they offer many more opportunities for monetization after customers' initial $60 purchase. So why wouldn't a publisher aim to make a multiplayer game that could keep players engaged over months or years as opposed to 10 to 20 hours? Sorry about that weird cut. Let's hear. Let's go back to what Settleman said earlier. Importantly, we are shifting the game to be a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and reimagining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. Again, my opinion, RPG. Call it the Destiny fiction. Call it the Destiny of video games. If that doesn't sound like EA Vancouver will be taking a swing at replicating Bungie's success with Moon Wizards, we don't know what would. No, I disagree. I would say they're probably going to go more open world action adventure action role playing game. EA is already doing this with another internal studios, BioWare, whose new intellectual property is a cooperative sci-fi action game, Anthem. See, I think that's going to be their test for this. I don't think they would do it. I don't think that they'd start another project similar to Destiny, in my opinion. And perhaps it didn't help that the publisher is also funding Respawn's Star Wars project, which is a third-person action-adventure title. Yeah. All right. This is the big reason why I wanted to talk about this. Streaming is killing the linear single-player campaign star. Obviously, what I do here, I disagree with this entirely. Story-based single-player games also threatened by another recent development that games industry has to contend with: online video. Whether it's YouTube and captured gameplay footage or Twitch and live streaming, the ability for players to watch an entire game being played online for free hurts the commercial visibility of the genre much more than, say, multiplayer titles. See, I disagree. I know tons of people, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I know tons of people who, if it's a game they want to play, they won't watch it on stream or Twitch or anything. You know, they'll buy the game and play it. If it's a game that they're curious about, like I've done this a few times, go, okay, I'll watch it, and then go, oh, I really like this. I'll stop watching and buy the game. It's not as simple as we see it and we're done. It's nowhere near that simple. So I have big problems with this, but let's continue with this. It seems undeniable that some people, and it may be a small percentage of players, but they do exist, see enough of a game on platforms like Twitch and YouTube and decide that they've had their fill and they don't need to actually spend $60 on it. Sure, you could watch somebody play through Destiny 2's story campaign, but there's so much more to do in that game, even if you don't do that. Even if you do that, well, okay, but what else is it? It's just playing multiplayer matches. It's just grinding out levels. There's really not a lot else to do. Everyone says, oh, there's so much content. Yeah, kinda, but it's like MMO stuff to do. See, if you watch a full Let's Play of something like Uncharted 4, you've pretty much seen everything the game has to offer. Of course, plenty of players use these methods to get an idea of what a game is like in action before buying, but major publishers like EA don't need that kind of marketing. See, I disagree with that entirely. I mean, it's why you've actually seen the games industry shift heavily, because I remember when this stuff started getting popular, developers hated streamers and hated YouTubers. It was constant. They were getting hit with copyrights. They were getting hit with a lot of stuff. They did not like them, and then they kind of decided to steer into the skid, and I think it's, if anything, I think they're mutually beneficial. I really think that they are very mutually beneficial. Sorry. I also think that a lot of these bigger like game companies like Polygon and Eurogamer and all these, you know, big companies, I think these guys aren't a big fan of guys like me and guys of other YouTubers who will sit and just give their opinions and write our own reviews and do this and this and this and not be connected to these big companies. And I think there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people, like particularly Polygon, I know a lot of people don't like Polygon because of their extreme far left politics. I'm also one of those. I don't mind their news reporting. This is, at least this opinion piece is talking about games, but I heavily disagree with it, with that point, that I don't think it hurts marketing of games. Insofar as AAA publishers continue to make games with linear single-player campaigns, they will likely push those experiences in the direction of aforementioned open-world or open-world-esque games. The genre's emergent design means that anything can happen, which makes a series like Dishonored conducted to live streaming while leaving open the possibility that people watching it on YouTube or Twitch may still want to spend money on it. Let's finish this out, and I'll give my final thoughts on this article. The future for linear single-player games is bleak, to be sure, but it's not all bad news. These kinds of titles are still coming out for now, considering machine games Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, playing it right now, which launches next week. And there's a chance that major publisher will figure out a way to develop these games sustainable, perhaps by finding the right balance of microtransactions for cosmetic items. Hi, Overwatch. In the meantime, pour out a blah, 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 blah. Look, I know this wasn't really talking about EA, but this had some other stuff in the games industry that I did kind of want to talk about and give my opinions on, and actually I really did disagree with this guy. This is Simon Sarkar. Again, I can't remember if I said it. Either way, that whole thing with linear games dying because of streamers, I disagree with that. That's like saying it's like a movie. I disagree. I think there's something very different from watching a game's story and actually playing the game. If you wanted to see the story, I can understand that. But is that the only reason? I mean, gameplay is also part of the game. I don't know. That's my opinion. I've spent way too long on this article. Moving on now into a Eurogamer article here, written by Robert Purchase. I can't remember. I've seen people literally spend $15,000 on Mass Effect multiplayer cards. Article on Eurogamer. Gameplay designer Manveer I'm going with hire. I don't know. Spent a long time, 7 years, working for Electronic Arts at BioWare Montreal, making Mass Effect 3, mostly multiplayer, and then Mass Effect Andromeda, and he had some illuminating information about the company's mindset to share with Waypoint at the weekend. This article was from 23rd of October. It was to do with EA's recent closure of Visceral Games and the pivot in direction of the Star Wars game in development there. But it also tied into Star Wars Battlefront 2 loot crates as well. In the Visceral Games statement, EA Executive Vice President Patrick Sutherland said, and I quote, "It has become clear to deliver experience to players back to enjoy it for a long time. Come back, blah, blah, blah." We've read that 2 or 3 times already. It read like a declaration: EA will move away from single-player experiences in favor of open-world or shared open-world games. Fuck shared open-world games. It's what Manveer here said he saw happening firsthand there. And I quote, "It's definitely a thing inside of EA," he said. "They are generally pushing for more open-world games, and the reason is you can monetize them better. The words in there that we're used... God damn it. I hate the font size that they go with this. It's so, I don't know, it's so thin and small. The words in there that were used are, have them come back again and again, not quite, but that's the gist, see above. Why do you care about that at EA? The reason you care about that is because microtransactions, buying card packs and Mass Effect games, the multiplayer. It's the same reason we added card packs to Mass Effect 3. How do you get people to keep coming back to a thing instead of just playing for 60 to 100 hours? That is a big thunderstorm that is rolling right over my fucking head. Let's see. The problem is that we've scaled up our budgets to 100 million plus, and we haven't actually made a space for good linear single-player games that are under that. But why can't we have both? Why does it have to be one or the other? Thank you. I was about to make this point. And the reason is that EA and those big publishers in general only care about the highest return on investment. There we go. They don't actually care about what the players want. They care about what the players will pay for. Spot freaking on. That's I think more concisely than I could put it. That was exactly my point. This is the big problem. Look, he says other big publishers. I think EA is the biggest of them all that does this. I'm not saying that they all don't care about money, but I think that the other thing is, I think other companies, and I could be wrong on this, but I think other companies at some level give a shit what we think as gamers. You know, they don't just treat us as a means to an end. These guys at EA, I highly doubt that they, I question how much they actually give a shit about us. Us, the players and everything. You need to understand the amount of money that's at play with microtransactions. I'm not allowed to say the number, but I can tell you when Mass Effect 3 multiplayer came out, those card packs we were selling, the amount of money we made just off of those card packs was so significant. That's the reason Dragon Age has multiplayer. Son of a bitch. That's the reason other EA products started getting multiplayer that hadn't really had them before, because we nailed it and brought in a ton of money. It's a repeatable income versus one-time income. I've seen people literally spend $15,000 on Mass Effect multiplayer cards. End quote. What we're seeing is a cynical chasing of games, the games, making big money. You've seen what is BioWare's new franchise coming out? He asked. Anthem. The host, God damn it, the host dully answered. Right, Hire said. It's not a traditional looking BioWare game, right? If that's what you're seeing from a place like BioWare, owned by EA, a place where I worked for 7 years, if that's what you're seeing from Visceral, now closing and going to this other Vancouver studio, what it means is that, God, that the linear single-player AAA game at EA is dead for the time being. Manveer here, however it's pronounced, said making the open world gave Mass Effect Andromeda the most problems. BioWare simply didn't have the expertise for it. He said, and open worlds are among the hardest thing in games to make, because you can't predict how players will approach situations in them. Trying to build an open world after major changes in direction was just too much. A fair point. And I think that explains some stuff, and especially there's some problems in the development of Andromeda. But again, I still think they had something there. Hey, go watch my Mass Effect Let's Play, and I'll, you can go see all that. But let's see here. The problem is yeah, okay, we read that. Okay, and I quote: "The problem is what ultimately comes out with a Mass Effect Andromeda isn't the game we started making," he said. "We started by making a prequel called Mass Effect Contact, and as we started testing things, we realized a prequel wasn't a good idea, and we moved to a sequel, which a lot of the team was happier with. We rebooted the game design multiple times, so the version of the game you see come out is probably at least 2.5 years of direction." End quote. It sounds like BioWare Montreal wasn't a happy ship. There have been deeper dives into the turbulent development of Mass Effect Andromeda, and as soon as here had seen the project through to yeah, god damn it, manufacturing, again, it's this font size. He left, and I quote, "I was done," he said. It was a real difficult project and time," end quote. He goes on to talk in much depth to Waypoint about cultural disagreements in the full hour and a half podcast. Today, Man for Hire is getting his own indie studio off the ground, making a game about the war on drugs and destruction of black and brown communities in cities of white supremacy. He said he currently trying to raise funds for the project. Yeah, I think in there he hit the exact point of what they are doing and why they're doing it, which really, to me, which I sit here and go, I understand from a business perspective that you want the highest return possible, but at some level, at some time, you have to realize you are going to piss so many people off. And again, I think this is why we're seeing so many of these, I call them these games as service model. Ubisoft announcing Skull and Bones, Anthem, Destiny, go down the line here. All these multiplayer, open world, shared open world, whatever kind of games. Sorry, getting text messages. Yeah, it's just overall, it really bugs me. Moving on, now, a little bit more on BioWare. This came out, this article, on the 28th of October. BioWare announces new Mass Effect novel. Article, Alex Osborne, IGN. Mass Effect Annihilation, a new novel set that expands the story of Mass Effect Andromeda, is coming next year. According to BioWare's announcement on its official blog, the tie-in book, written by Hugo Award-winning author Catherine M. Valente, tells the story of Keelah Sia's journey to Andromeda as it transports 20,000 Quarian, Batarian, Drell, and Elcor colonists. Brief description of the story, courtesy of BioWare, reads, and I quote, a pathogen is discovered aboard the Ark after many Drell are found dead in their cryopods. As the pathogen jumps species to species, the ship's system begins to fail, making it clear this is no accident. Mass Effect Annihilation will be released in the US, UK, and Canada on June 26, 2018. A couple months later, on August 28th, the novel will also be available for purchase in Australia. BioWare confirmed earlier this year that no additional single-player updates or content will be released for Mass Effect Andromeda. For our thoughts, blah, 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 blah. This is the thing. This is how you're continuing that series. Really? You don't go, okay, look, this is pretty much one of our most beloved franchises. We really shit the bed on that one. I know. Let's do a novel. That's gonna make people happy. Again, this isn't as bad as the other stuff. You know, the corporate. I'm gonna say corporatism, and I don't rail against that very often, even in my own personal off-camera life. But that whole big business that they don't give a shit about us as gamers, they care about using video games to make money, which I have a problem with and I don't like, but at least I understand. This is just dumb. You really think this is going to make money? You really think this isn't going to just piss people off? All right, that's all the articles. That's about all I can handle. I hope... I don't know. Tell me what you think about all this. If you think I'm saying something dumb, if you found something that I might have missed, always put it in the comments. I'll talk with you there. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What have you? Jeez, I try not to do these rant style videos because sometimes I don't feel like I'm being informative. I feel like I'm just ranting. Well, that's what I was. But so, either way, I hope you enjoyed this in some way, shape, or form. Links to all these articles will be in the description. Remember, Facebook, Twitter, the website, minds.com are also in the description. Links to all those. You can talk to me on any of those platforms. Like, comment, you're not already. Please subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more next time, guys. Until then, I'm AJ Gels, the CM3 Gaming Channel. I'm out.